I'm Steve Croft. It's become a sad but regular part of urban life in America. Charges of police attacks against blacks and other minorities that expose deep racial conflicts still unresolved. Last week it was Miami, where the shooting of an unarmed black motorcyclist touched off 3 nights of rioting. The week before that, it was Long Beach, California, where a news crew captured the following incident between a Long Beach police officer and a black passenger in a car that had been pulled over for straddling a white line.
6. Adam 6. Advise on traffic. Going traffic again, California 16th, 2 Edward John Paul, 179. 2 Edward John Paul, 179, 16th California.
Just make sure you keep your speed right. I got the video.
Lincoln 81. Lincoln 81. Lincoln 81, confirming you're still at the station, Sergeant. This way.
They got us.
Negative, we just cleared.
Okay. Pull up.
Right up to 7 here at the station.
Pull up right up here.
Hey, come over here.
For what?
Because I'm fucking telling you to, that's why.
What are you talking about, man? You want to write a ticket, write a ticket. Don't mess with me, man.
Listen, I got the right to pat you down and I'm gonna fucking do that.
Yeah?
I don't know if you got a knife or weapon on you.
You can pat me down, but don't mess with
Turn
me,
around
man.
and put your fucking hands on your head now.
Why?
Do it now because I'm fucking telling you to.
What are you going to do?
Put your fucking hands on your head!
You going to hit me with that stick?
Yeah, I just might.
For what?
Put your hands on your head.
For what?
I don't know if you got a fucking knife, you
I
asshole!
don't have a knife.
Put your fucking hands on your head, turn around! Fucking asshole.
Nothing, man, nothing. Nothing, man. I'm all right, okay? No problem.
Get the fucking driver out.
No one on your plate is current 79 Triumph, Natalie, Boleski, instead of Whittier.
Shut up! I'm gonna break off the car off. Break my arm, man!
When Adam 601 on your plate is current 87. Charles 3 number. Coming 3, go ahead. 2 George Robert Mary 558. 2 George Robert Mary 558. 1 Charlie 6. 1 Charlie 6. Channel 1 Sam 41. 1 Sam 41. Adam 6, stand by. 1 Sam 41. Charlie 6, Mary.
Fine, aren't you?
Charlie 6, I need a sergeant out to our location. 1 Sam 41, channel 1. 1 Sam 41. I saw a channel 41 at the station. Stand for it. Charlie, we have a sergeant on location now. We have a news crew out here now. We'll have to try to get one at the station to respond to the channel. Find one, ASAP, 10-4. 10-4.
What made the incident so provocative was the fact that the black man you just saw get pushed into a plate glass window is himself a renegade police sergeant. Don Jackson set out to sting the Long Beach Police Department to demonstrate that the justice handed out to blacks and whites is inherently different. That videotape touched off a raging controversy in Southern California. But that's nothing new for Don Jackson. We began following him last year after another highly publicized incident. A year ago this week, LA's bloody gang warfare reached the quiet streets of white, wealthy Westwood. An innocent young woman was gunned down in a drive-by shooting near the UCLA campus, and Los Angeles police responded with a show of force.
Does he get his ID on him anywhere?
No.
2 weeks later, Don Jackson decided to test that police crackdown. In a home video shot by members of the NAACP, Jackson and 6 black men turned up in Westwood wearing what police would later describe as gang-style clothing. Jackson was arrested almost immediately and charged with blocking a sidewalk.
The point behind it was that it's not your activity or your actions that will draw police contact, but your color. We stung LAPD. I plan on stinging other departments. I'm trained to do it, and I know how to do it properly. And there's nothing illegal about it. It gives us the teeth to make change.
I think he's a jerk. Because he's really hitting at all of our police officers, black, white, Hispanic, women, all of those he's supposed to be trying to assist.
The sting enraged LA Police Chief Daryl Gates and embarrassed his 7,400 police officers. Gates called it a crazy, stupid, idiotic thing to do.
The police officers have a very tough job as it is, and to try and bait them, trying to lead them into some indiscretion, I think, is it's bad enough for the ACLU to do something like that, but you kind of expect that from the ACLU, but from a police officer, you don't expect that.
The misdemeanor charges against Jackson were eventually dropped. But why would a young sergeant, described as a rising star in the Hawthorne Police Department, risk a promising career by charging his colleagues with racism?
When a black policeman takes his uniform off, he reverts back to his status, which is second class as a black citizen. And unless the police know who he is from some other encounter, either in the field or somebody tells him, hey, that guy's a cop, you're just as likely to be abused as anybody. LAPD recently had 2 black undercover officers beaten by white officers who didn't know that they were policemen in their own department.
There is a difference in being a black police officer. I think they call it, black police officers call it the second-class badge.
Ron Jenkins of the Glendale Police Department, Garland Hardiman of LAPD, and Greg Slaughter of the Santa Monica Police Department are all part of a group Don Jackson formed called Law Enforcement Officers for Justice. It has members in 15 Southern California police agencies.
Did you guys know each other before this got started?
No, I didn't.
They first became involved in law enforcement because it was one of the first professions open to blacks, and it offered a measure of respect in the community. Yet at the time we conducted this interview, half of them had either left their jobs or had filed lawsuits against their departments.
When you're riding with some of the seasoned officers, you'll find some of them so bold as tell you, if I happen to slip and call someone a nigger down here, don't be offended. Now, how could you not be offended when you're black?
Basically what we were told in the Santa Monica Police Department by our chief and our captains were that black officers had to have thick skins to get along with the other officers. So we had to endure racist posters every day being posted at our job site.
What kind of racist posters?
One of the posters which was posted around our agency, and as well as some others, which got quite famous in Southern California, was the running nigger target.
Don Jackson says flyers like these were regularly posted in his police department and reflect the kind of racial problems he experienced since his very first week on the job with the Hawthorne Police Department back in 1982.
What was the first incident you encountered in Hawthorne that showed you that there were racial problems?
I was with my first training officer. He was making some other comments about patrol and how to do this and do that. And then he asked me if I knew that there were 7 types of niggers, just following right through with the rest of his conversation.
What was your reaction?
I wasn't sure that that's what he said, and I wanted to make sure that I understood what he was saying. And I asked him, I said, did you ask me if I knew that there's 7 types of niggers? And he said, yes. And then he goes on to describe them. He tells me there's swamp niggers, sand niggers, ghetto niggers, coon niggers, porch niggers, regular niggers, and black people.
What happened after that? Did you report him?
No. As a matter of fact, again, the irony of it is that these things were daily, and that this same person would invite me out for drinks, invite me over to his house for barbecue. It didn't make any difference to him that those things were offensive, because within the group he existed, those were acceptable comments about black people.
I kept telling him to go back and to just keep his mouth closed, try to do his work.
Don's father, Woodrow Jackson, knew something about blacks in law enforcement. He had been a pioneer of sorts, serving 28 years as an L.A. County Sheriff's deputy. He was Don's role model.
Your advice was ignore it.
That's right.
Turn the other cheek?
I won't go that far as say turn the other cheek, because I've always advised him to be a man. You can't stop people from talking, but you can stop them when they're talking, addressing the remarks to you.
Pursuing his father's chosen career, Jackson had aspirations of one day becoming a police chief. He had faith in the system and refused to countenance the racial insensitivity he kept running into at the Hawthorne Police Department.
At some point, did you put him on notice to say, look, I don't want to hear this stuff anymore?
By the third and fourth year, I was letting people know exactly how I felt. And I was speaking out directly on racial issues. I nearly got into fights with individuals who asserted their belief system about blacks in a very negative way in front of me. My lieutenant was talking one day, or I was talking to another black officer about a rape that occurred. He walks in and says that black women enjoy being raped. And as far as he's concerned, a black woman being raped is not a crime, that they consider gang rape a party.
What did you say to that?
That one I wrote a complaint on.
The investigation didn't win Jackson any friends, but it did substantiate his allegations. And Hawthorne Police Chief Kenneth Stonebreaker reprimanded the officer who had made the offending remarks.
From my perspective, from the time Don Jackson was hired until that time that he left, he was a good police officer, did the kinds of things that he was supposed to do, and there wasn't any problems.
Truthful?
As far as I know, I can't find anything that would dispute that.
We requested interviews with Jackson's fellow officers. That request was denied because of his pending lawsuit against the Hawthorne Police Department. Chief Stonebreaker would offer only this comment on the subject of racism.
Yes, there's racism in the Hawthorne Police Department. I feel that there is racism in your organization. There is racism here as everywhere.
Say you want 75 to 75 apiece right here.
Jackson figured the best way to fight racism was to climb above it, through the ranks of the department. In spite of problems with some men in the field, he quickly moved out of patrol and into choice assignments like this undercover operation. Here he was instrumental in busting a fencing ring that was trading money and drugs for stolen property.
I got the door open, have them come up now, right now. Okay, they're all coming towards the door. Move it in now.
Jackson scored the highest in his department on a series of exams and was promoted to sergeant. But instead of things getting better, they got worse.
Suddenly, you have some of these 20-year veterans who have had a compounded history of racist attitudes that they've been able to live with, suddenly being told what to do by a 29-year-old black sergeant. And for some of them, that was just too much to handle.
And perhaps too much for Don Jackson to handle. After 6 years of racial conflict, he took a stress-related sick leave, convinced that blacks could no longer receive equitable treatment in or out of the job.
Hey, I said put your head back in the car.
Okay, okay.
With gang violence in L.A. County at an all-time high, police walk a fine line between enforcement and abuse.
Okay. I'll get down on my knees, man. That's not necessary, man. Picking up the wrong people all the time, man.
For Don Jackson, the last straw came when police clearly crossed that line in an incident involving his own father.
He was driving with my younger sister and 4 kids in the car. He's ordered off the road by several Pomona police officers.
And I was yelling to the officer that I'm a deputy sheriff. I was ordered then to turn around and walk backwards toward them.
Allegedly, what they were looking for was a black man, approximately 25 or 30 years of age, who had just committed a robbery and a drive-by shooting.
When I complied, I felt myself being pulled up off the ground, and I was body slammed in the street to the sidewalk, which caused me to hurt my hand and dislodge a kidney apparatus that I have to wear. At that time, the officers put handcuffs on me, and one was holding my head down on the ground with his knee.
Now, my father's driving a van with 4 kids in the car, and none of them are over 5 years old, and a woman, and he's going to do drive-by shootings and rob houses.
When they did find my identification, they uncuffed me, and they told me that I should understand that I'm a police officer, that this is part of police work.
Did you understand?
No, I didn't understand.
Were the kids visible?
Oh, yeah, they were visible. They were in shock. They don't even want to ride anywhere with my father in a car because that's the impact that it's had on them. My father, I'm 30 years old now. I had never seen him cry in my lifetime.
Hence, it's like everything that you live. You have to excuse me. Everything you live with, all your principles, all your thoughts, just going down the drain.
Did it change the way you think about things?
No, I've got over a lot of it because I have good friends. And they're both black and white. And but it made me feel that there's a need for what he's doing.
It was like a shock wave sent through me. I felt it was time to take some action. It was no longer time to talk about working things out, to talk about negotiating on police issues and mistreatment. It was time to get involved.
There they go right there.
Now, on any given weekend, Don Jackson can be found in a van, monitoring his police band radio, videotaping officers to see if they'll cross that line between enforcement and abuse.
I had seen things happen in the streets all my career, and I tried to stop and do things where I could to insulate people from the type of abuse that I knew was racially motivated. But when it happened to my own father, it was time for me to use my skills in another way. Good cops do not have to worry about me, but the bad ones certainly do.
Before this happened to me, I thought he was going much too far. That incident that happened to me changed my mind. Somebody has to do it. And I wish it were someone else's son, but it's mine son, so I have to live with that.
There are probably people out there would say, this guy's become obsessed with this. Maybe he's lost perspective.
I'm obsessed with justice. I'm obsessed with equity. Those things I have to have. I was not brought up to be a second-class citizen.
He's pretty far out there on a limb right now.
I know.
Do you worry about him?
His safety, I do. I know it's dangerous, and I just wish he didn't have to go through this. I think I thought I had paid the price to where he wouldn't have to.
1204 West Adams Boulevard.